Hello everyone, my name is Charlie Davis and this is my diversity audit on my organization where I currently work. To begin, we're going to discuss the various diversity initiatives of the organization to include their diversity policy, the Executive Diversity Council, and the various affinity groups that are part of this team. This organization has created its own diversity policy with a focus on creating high-performing, creative, and fast-learning teams. It states in the policy that all employees are to be valued, respected, and given equal rights, and stresses a culture of inclusion across all members of the organization to include military and civilian employees. The Executive Diversity Council consists of champions, representatives from each of the core affinity groups, as well as various advisors available to these groups. Its overall purpose is to oversee the activities of the affinity groups and to draft and enforce diversity policy for the organization. The affinity groups currently displayed are the ones which are formally recognized by the organization. Of note is the American Indian Alaskan Native group, which is new this past year. In addition, each group has 4 core team members which serve as representatives to the Executive Diversity Council discussed earlier, and they each have a human resources advisor, a legal advisor, and public affairs official to assist them in their various needs of promoting their group and making sure that they fall within the guidelines discussed by the Executive Diversity Council. Separate from the diversity initiatives the organization has in place are its equal opportunity policies. These are separated from military and civilian members, with military members being governed by equal opportunity policies and civilian members being governed by equal employment opportunity policies. The EO policy for the organization states that all members must be treated with respect, dignity, and be valued equally regardless of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, or sexual orientation, as well as age, disability, or genetic information. Now, the difference between the civilian and military sides are military members are not covered under the discriminations for age, disability, or genetic information because that is actually a factor for employment for military members. Now, the organization performs its own annual audits and compares their results to the national average. So we'll discuss that in the next slide, as well as discussing the overall organizational culture. The results the organization received from their own 2018 diversity audits had mostly negative results. Some of the highlights concerned them being below the national average for minorities in supervisory positions. They were below average in overall employee diversity. Their retention of minority employees was average. Their promotions were above average except for supervisory positions. Those fell in line with the below national average we discussed earlier with the minorities. But their awards were above average for females and all minority groups. In summary, for the organizational culture, it would appear the culture of the organization is of exclusion vice inclusion. During the interviews that I performed, morale was seemingly high. However, the numbers do not match what I encountered in my interviews. There was no comments concerning bias or discriminatory acts by any of the members that I interviewed. However, the fact that there are such a small amount of diversity within the leadership and overall organization is indicative that there is a problem of diversity in this organization.